So I'd like to just thank everyone for attending. We're going to talk today about how you can create a bit of a plan to get out of this crisis. We've certainly heard a lot of negative stuff in the press. We've certainly seen a lot of misinformation and a lot of fake news. And what we're going to do today is we're going to go through some actual steps that you can take right now to start your recovery. Your recovery plan. There's no reason why we have to just sort of sit and wonder what's going to happen. There's no reason why we need to think about that, because we can start this right now. We can start your recovery right now, and crazy times don't last forever. You know, this is a little blip in the long period of time that you're going to be in business, or the time that you're going to be on this planet, or however we want to look at it. You know, this isn't going to last forever. I will also mention that if you see a spelling mistake, that's me. This whole presentation has not gone through my usual spell checking team, so you're probably going to see some spelling mistakes. Please, no spelling Nazis in this presentation. Text me afterwards and let me know. Right, so I was actually sitting with my wife the other day, and I was reminded of a time when I was about 14 years old and I broke my ankle. And I looked at the doctor as he was putting this cast on my foot, and I said to him, "Am I going to be able to play sports again?" And he looked at me, stone cold face, and he said, "Well, could you play sports before?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you're going to play sports afterwards." That's what this is. This is like this cast on your leg that's going to eventually come off, brief period of time, and we're going to get back to it. So this is not going to last forever. Now, I'm not a Trump supporter in any way, shape, or form, but what he started saying a few weeks ago, although misguided and words weren't right, he's kind of got the right idea. We need to start thinking about recovery now. We need to start thinking about what we're going to be doing to get through this and how you're going to recover from this, because that is exactly what's going to happen, or what should happen. But of course, we need to do it in a safe way. We're not suggesting for a second that we just start going back to normal, because some of the wording that's around right now, I think, is wrong, and I think it's hurtful. Or at least unhelpful. When we talk about it's business as normal, well, it isn't business as normal. We've got to recognize that. And one of the things we've got to talk about is, how is it not business as normal, and what are you doing differently now than you were before? Because we do have to gain the trust of a new client. But there is a lot of confusion out there right now. There's a lot of, I just automatically think of a Jimi Hendrix song. There's so much confusion right now. I can't get no relief. You know, that's what a lot of people that are talking to us in message or even in conversations right now are saying. I'm just confused. I don't know what to believe. I don't know what's going on. So our goal as a coaching and consulting business is to create some clarity and some direction and some steps as to move forward. You do have a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but you certainly have control over what's going to happen in the future. We want people to know that you're totally in control of what happens right now. You know, it's true that there are things outside of your control. We certainly didn't control this virus to happen. We didn't control a lot of things. But you know what? That's no different than every other day that this virus wasn't around. We were never in control of what was going to happen specifically in our future with knowing what's going to happen. But you are certainly in control of what you want to happen. So let's get people off this hanging branch. Let's get people off this, it's all happening to me sort of mentality, and let's start making a bit of a plan. A little bit of feedback at this stage. We'll stop every few minutes, just a little bit of feedback. Does anybody have anything you want to add in conversation or question or comment at this stage? Maybe I'll ask a specific question. How are you feeling right now on a scale of 1 to 10, positive wise? Are you a 2? Are you an 8? Are you a 5? Just type a number in the box. Where are you at? Ben's a 10. 10 is positive. 1 is not positive. Adrian says 8, encouraged by the government incentives. Melanie says, I think it's important to remember everybody's in the same boat. Jacques a 9. Chanel is an 8. That's awesome to hear. Scott's an 8. Sean, where are you at right now? How are you feeling about things? There's the first little blip today. Scott's an 8. Alex is a 9. Awesome. All right. So what we know is that when we looked at our business foundations model, what you see in front of you is our model where we look at the 9 foundations of business. And when we normally work with people, we've got marketing, we've got pricing, we've got production. Around the outside of this are the topics that we help businesses with. And marketing is probably a really important thing. Pricing is probably the second most important thing, and production is probably the third. But none of the other 6 are unimportant also. Like if we think about innovation, for example, you think of a really cool old company called Kodak, right? They were doing pretty well. They had a multi-billion-dollar industry that basically crashed overnight because they weren't paying attention to innovation. So that was not a crisis that happened, but that was certainly a change in their future that they didn't adapt to. And we're kind of faced with that now in the form of a crisis. So you'll see tons of businesses right now are innovating because they're forced to. So the same foundations of business are just as important. We haven't created anything new on that side of it, but we just are asked to refocus on what might be more important. So your financial stability right now is even more important than it was before. Customer experience. You know what? The work you're doing right now, it has to be perfect so your customers are saying good things. So none of these 9 foundations, marketing, pricing, production, the strategy of business, product mix, customer experience, financial, the culture, and the innovation, those 9 areas are the areas of your business we need to focus on. So when we talk about creating a strategy, our strategy right now might be a little different than, say, a 12-month strategy. It might be a 3-month strategy. So we want you to do this and this and this so that we can get you up to this point. All right, so here's a really interesting breakdown. I've been compiling all of this stuff from really, really clever people, quite frankly, much cleverer, if that's a word, smarter than me. And here's the general conclusion that in normal times, a business is on one of 3 paths, essentially. You're going to be on this path here, which kind of starts out with all sorts of good intentions and is slowly, on its way down. If you're in all kinds of trouble, like you're financially not stable, if you're not doing, reasonably well, that is a path you might be on now. Or you might be on this path where things are kind of going up and down and up and down. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not, but you're not actually doing anything proactive, but you're doing okay. And then we've got businesses that are on this line that are kind of like this, looking to improve, always looking for new and better ways of doing things, looking to invest in great people or great ideas, great technology. So that thought process right now, this normal times, in here, that hasn't changed. But what a crisis like this does is it highlights, when we do have a crisis like this, it highlights what line you're on, because it accelerates that line to get to wherever it was going to go in the first place. So if, for example, you're already on this red line, what's happening now in times of crisis, people will go like this. And if you're on the yellow line where things are just sort of going, now you might have ended up here, but in actual fact, now you're going to end up down here, because this crisis is going to give you more trouble than what you normally would have had. Now, if you happen to be a business that is improving, this might have gone like this, but unfortunately now this crisis is going to take away some of that acceleration, and it's probably going to go more like this. But you're going to stay on that same line. So these 3 mindsets, when we talk, there's a gentleman that I know quite well by the name of Todd Herman, and he's been doing some really interesting studies on mindset right now and people in business. And he's kind of summarized it into 3 things. He's saying, look, of all people in business right now, as always, people are in one of 3 basic mindset modes. Let's call the red line people that are fear-focused. Oops, bear with me for a sec here. Let me get my tech right. This red line is people that are fear-focused. Let's call this 3. And so fear-focused simply means I'm afraid to commit to something. I'm afraid to buy that new machine. I'm afraid to hire someone new. I'm afraid to do the next thing. I'm afraid to put the business at risk. That's a fear-focused business person's mindset. And those sorts of mindsets pretty much always end up somewhere down here. And that's where you really don't want to be, right? The second mindset is this one here, which is what we call unfocused. So if at any point in the day you say, look, I'm just not focused. I can't get some regularity. We can't get things to happen on a normal ongoing basis. And I just can't stay focused on what we need. That's an unfocused mindset. And that's where people are right now. Or if you are someone that can stay in what we call a strategy focused mindset, simply means when this crisis here happens, right? This is a big wake-up call for a lot of people. Your mindset and your mind automatically kicks into strategy. What am I going to do now? How am I going to get through this? Let's put a plan together. Let's do all of this sort of stuff. So when we work with people, I won't ramble on about this for too long, but when we work with people, often people are already in this mindset. They just want to know more about the how. Or people are here and they've recognized it and they want to get onto this line. Or people here have had enough and they want to get onto this line. But make no mistake about it, if you do it too late, the distance from here to here might be too great. Or if you do it here, the distance from here to here might be too great, right? So whatever you do, get into a strategy mindset. I'm not saying that you have to do it with us. What I'm saying is you have to have a strategy focused mindset, because you've got to have a strategy to deal with this. And, you were here. This crisis didn't change or create anything other than highlight the position you were already in business. When a crisis happens, we have a really close look at what is working and what isn't working. So here we are right now, and I would assume that everybody wants to be up here. So our goal is to help you survive and get into this sort of thrive mode, because we don't know, what this period of time is going to be, whether it's 3 months, 4 months. We have no idea really. But I'm pretty confident in saying I don't think we're going to be terribly inconvenienced for much more than a few months. But I would like to ask everyone right now, what are you thinking right now? What period of time do you think we're going to be in this current stage, or even more lockdown? What period of time are you thinking this is going to go on for? And put it in months. Are you 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? What's your thoughts? Sean, I'd love to hear from you. Alex says 3 months. Ben says 2 months. Jack says 2 to 3 months. Adrian, 2 to 3 months. Yep. Still affects up to 6 months. Yeah, probably 6 to 12, I would think. We're planning for around, Melanie says we're planning for about a 6-month turnaround. Yep. Oh, I see. Sean, sorry, I didn't see you're in the questions and answers. Sean, thanks for putting some comments in. I just saw over here you're in the questions and answers. Just jump over to the chat and engage with us in the chat area. Then it's all in one box for me. Sean says 3 months. Okay, yeah, I think that's exactly right. But the question is, what are we going to do over those 3 months? Now, we do have a wonderful opportunity here. The big question is, what mindset are you in right now? Do you feel like you have a strategy? Do you feel like you're unfocused, or do you feel like you're still in a little bit of fear as to what are you afraid to do something right now? What mindset are you in right now? So this is something you can work on yourself. If you've been struggling for a long time to get your business to a point where you don't have to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week in it, that it's actually making some profit, that you're not chasing defects all the time. If you're struggling with that right now, even before the crisis, you're probably still struggling with it. This didn't create that. If your business has been stagnant for a while, if you haven't grown or haven't done anything to improve the business, that's the current situation. So the strategy that we're going to put in place here is a short-term strategy, but what I'm hoping is it leads to a long-term strategy. So let's talk about what you need right now, what you need to get through this particular situation. Number one, we think that everybody, if you haven't done it right now, you should get your current finances in order. And then this should be something you're doing anyway on an ongoing basis. And I'd like to just get everybody's feedback a little bit. Do you, on a month by month basis, like every single month without fail, do you get your bookkeeper or whoever is doing your finances to show you your profit and loss on an accrual basis, not cash basis, but on an accrual reporting basis? Do you get your accounting people to provide you with that P&L, so that here in March, we can say, okay, this is how it went in February? Just a simple yes or no in the box, if you could. Let me know how many of you are actually doing that every single month. Ben says yes. Scott says yes. Adrian says no. So this is the current acid test, right? If you're not getting your financials in order on an ongoing basis anyway, I compare it to driving a car down the road without a dashboard. You wouldn't know how fast you're going. You wouldn't know how well you went the month before. And so not only that, but if you're going to go to a bank and ask for some money, which we highly recommend right now, they're going to ask for some financials. They're going to ask for how you're going, generally speaking. The second thing I think is important you do, and this is in the workbook. The second thing I think is important is look at your costs right now and do not just slash costs. I'm in a number of groups right now that I pay money for. I've got an accountant that I talk to on a fairly regular basis. He invoices me on a fairly regular basis. We do tax planning, we do brainstorming, we do all kinds of things. And he's a very valuable person to me right now. He's what I consider a high return on investment. I'm also in a coaching program myself. I could very easily have just said, look, I'm going to slash that cost. But quite frankly, I'm connected to a group there that is inspiring me in many ways that I would not have otherwise been inspired. So for me, that's a high return on investment cost. But low return on investment costs are very obvious. Things like, for many of you, it's going to be maybe rent repayments. It's going to be all these incentives that are coming out. If you're on a tax repayment schedule, you can stop making those payments. So those sorts of things that are low return in this time of crisis, take your profit and loss statement that you told me that you had here, all ready to go, and go line by line by line by line. Which one of these things am I going to either pause or stop or reduce because it's not returning me anything right now? And people that are helping you, programs that are helping you may be high return. Things that are just paying rent or those sorts of things that you're able to pause right now are what we call low return. So stop all unrequired payments. And in some cases, that might be your tax back debt that you're paying off. So that's number one. Get your finances in order. Make sure that you've got all that really, really clear. The other thing I would do is I would list all future cash that's going to be coming into the business. So list all jobs and their cash value for the next 3 months. So you might have, 4 jobs, and that equals, let's just say that's 400 grand, just to make it nice and easy. That's 400K. And you've taken 100 deposits for those. So you've actually got $300,000 coming in cash, in the next 3 months. So once you know that, you know what you have to work with to a large degree, and we can start creating budgets and forecasts around what you have coming in. So be really, really clear on who you are likely to pay and who you're not likely to pay. But also be really, really clear on this work right here, this $300,000, because this is, the most important thing in your business right now. You've got to have this cash coming in. But don't be working for people that in the past hadn't paid you. If you've got all this work and that's the sort of customer that was typically a 30, 60, 90, or 120-day payer, either don't do that job or sit down with that person and get a guarantee from them, or get the payments up front and say, look, we need to get payments up front. It's a really interesting topic. Like, we've got a large group. Some of you may or may not know our Joinery GPS program have about 30 businesses in it, much like you guys. And the interesting thing for us is, of course, going into it, we're a little worried. We're going to be maybe a non-required service, but we're really, really happy to find that people in our program have actually stepped up. We haven't lost anyone. Fortunately, we've responded accordingly, and everybody is just rolling up their sleeves and getting through it. But what they're also doing is they're going to some of these marginal customers that were late payers in the past and saying, look, I'm sorry, but we're not going to go to the next step and get into more risk because you're a bad payer in the past. We need to get some payments up front. And it's just amazing to me to see how a lot of those customers actually respond. More people in our group right now had payments early than prior to this crisis. And it just seems like a really interesting knock-on effect, because you're involved in a chain. Those people that you're dealing with need to get paid by somebody else, and they're probably doing the same thing as well. So a crisis like this has an interesting knock-on effect, not only just to you, but it has the same effects possibly to a builder who is now saying to everybody who owes them money, we need to get paid up front. And so we would hope that the result of this is going to be, they've got the money to pay you. Ask for it now, because you might not get it later. So future cash, and absolutely, if you're behind with suppliers, negotiate with your suppliers. You might be doing that already, but now is the time to get your future cash under control. So this is the second part. The third part is the work that you're doing now is your opportunity to make sure that you've got no defects. The tendency in most businesses, and this is true pretty much right across the board, is to go faster because you need the money, right? We need the money. We're worried. We're not sure what's going to happen. So you go faster with jobs. And what results is more defects. So my advice very strongly right now is to go slow down. Maybe if you were going to do 1 or 2 checks on things, do 3 and 4 checks. Make sure that any work that's going out your door right now is beyond any question of a doubt, 100%. Ensure work is done on time. Now let's just talk for a minute about what on time actually means. On time does not mean that you get the carcasses put together and just get them to site because the doors aren't ready and the drawers aren't ready and all that sort of stuff. That's not on time. And what that is going to do in every single case, it's going to extend the time it's going to take for you to finish this job. So if you have to delay your jobs right now for an extra day because you want to get the cabinets 100% complete before they leave the factory, I would suggest now is the time to start practicing that process. You can see stuff that we have out on YouTube or in some of our channels. We've got some new clients on board that have come on in the last 3-4 months. And what they have done is they have just changed the sequence of things in their factory. We've got a gentleman by the name of Adam up in Mudgee, TNT Cabinets, who, a typical cabinet shop, same sequence going through, get the carcasses put together and put them on the floor and then put the drawers together, walk back and forth all day long, putting drawers in, and then put doors and drawer fronts on. And we just changed the sequence of how they're doing things in the factory. And he generally feels that he's got about a 40% reduction in the amount of time it takes him to build an average job. Now, 40% is an absolutely massive astronomical number. It means that you're getting 40% more work done in a year. That means a 40% increase in revenue. So now is actually the time to start putting into place these new procedures and processes because it's so important right now that you don't have any defects, and it's so important that you can impress the people you're working with. So give your customer no reason to have any callbacks. So I'll just pause for a minute here and just ask for a little bit of feedback or comments on this. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? What's the takeaway from what I've just said? Give me 1 or 2 things that's resonating with you right now. Adrian says, great. Ben says, I'm picking it up. Totally agree. Aiming for defect free. Yeah, it's the defects that go out the door that were, keeping you sort of from doing the next job. That's the biggest problem. Focus on who will pay. Yep, picking up on defects. Completing defects is a big thing. Yeah, getting rid of defects. And so one of the next workshops we're going to do is about an actual process of elimination. And we won't go into this in this workshop, we don't have time, but certainly if you're making defects and finding them on the factory floor, we definitely don't want that to get to your customer. But by finding defects on the factory floor, that isn't stopping defects. That's just the safety net. And make no mistake about it, if you're producing defects, someone's going to miss something. So it's going to slip out the door and eventually something's going to get on site and your customer's going to find it. So the actual goal is to not make the defect in the first place. So that actually takes a little bit of a problem solving and a mistake proofing exercise to get to what we call the root cause of that defect. And sometimes it starts with the measurement. Sometimes it starts with the drawing. Sometimes there's where the defect is found is not where it was created. I'll just say that again. Where you find a defect is not where it was created. In almost every case, it was created somewhere else up the chain. So certainly we want to have a tighter control on making sure defects don't get to your customers. But what we actually want to do in this period of time is put a system in place that can stop those defects from happening in the first place. So now what do we want to talk about that's new out in the marketplace? So let's just also have a brief conversation. I'm just going to grab some water. What new customers are you seeing emerging out in the marketplace right now? What new things are you finding that you're wanting to respond to? Do we have anybody that's got requests from people to do home offices or anything like that that you weren't doing in the past? We're talking about innovation, home gyms. Jock, that's amazing. Yeah, home gyms and home gym setup. So racks for weights and that sort of thing. That's an amazing idea. I hadn't thought of that. I'm really encouraged to see a lot of the cafes around us, because if anybody knows me at all, you know I love coffee, and we go to cafes quite often. I watched a lot of cafes in this period of time, and I'm thinking, well, you guys are just going to have to close your doors. The really clever ones have pivoted really quickly, and they've gone to takeaway, but they've also gone to home delivery of things like produce. The really, really, really clever ones are going to be putting together things like a Marley Spoon type of thing, where if you loved their hamburger that they made, well, here's a menu and here's the ingredients to make that hamburger. We can't do it in the cafe, but you can make it at home and you can buy the ingredients from them. That's innovation, purely and simple. So we're going to talk a little bit about the new client in your new strategy and what you need to do to start identifying. Because if you keep talking about this the same old way, and I actually, at this stage, I wouldn't mind inviting Melanie. Would you be prepared to jump in here and just talk a little bit about new emerging markets and how we can find them? Just give me a yep, of course. Okay, so, whoops. Melanie, are you there?
I'm here. Can everyone
Beautiful.
hear me?
So Melanie Gardner is a wonderful friend of mine. She runs a marketing agency called House of Social. And I'd just like to introduce her to the group. If you don't know her, this is Melanie. Melanie, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Well, first of all, thanks for having me this morning. I'm really enjoying what I'm hearing actually from Bruce, because obviously I come at this from quite a different perspective. So it's really, really helpful to get such a good understanding about where you guys are. But I think when we talk about your customer, exactly what Bruce is saying is correct. You know, we really need to think about, well, okay, so you've got to be careful. You can't be seen to be capitalizing on what is a very traumatic experience for a lot of people right now. So we have to be careful around our language and how we do the pivot. I think no matter which new or emerging markets we decide to focus on in the next few months, it needs to be done with that understanding that if we can help someone, if we can provide a solution to a problem, then I think that's going to be accepted in a positive way. If we are seen to be price gouging or inflating prices because there's an opportunity in the market when people are already hurting financially, then I think that that's going to be taken the wrong way. So I think above everything else, think about your approach when you're looking for your new customer. The home gym idea I think is great. We talked about this a little while ago with Bruce, and I picked up straight away that home office or home office equipment could be a really big thing in the next 6 months, because we've got kids needing to work at home, we've got parents needing to work at home, people need their own space, people need their own headspace. So obviously that home office or workspace setup, and I think particularly too, you know, that's where clever design can really hit the mark here, I think, because if you think not every house has all this space, you can suddenly go and kit it out with this massive, great big home office. So what actually might need is innovation more around the use of space and innovation more around how we apply design to fix the problem. So it might have to be something like a desk that folds out from the wall, or, you know, that type of thing, because we can't assume with so many people living in apartments these days, we can't assume that we can just go in and do a full home office setup with massive, great big desk and cupboards and shelves and drawers and all these things. So I think, you know, from my perspective, I think the innovation side of things, if you can come up with a solution that is clever, that does the job, and that allows people to get a little bit of normalcy back into what is a completely abnormal situation for most people. I think no matter whether you're focusing on a home gym or office or kids' bedroom stuff or whatever, I think that's where you're going to hit the target. And Bruce has made the point here, you know, what are their needs and what do they value? Well, right now, people are valuing help. You look at all the things that have come out with the kindness projects and people looking out for neighbours and people offering to shop for others. You know, this is what is happening, and this is where we're pulling in to to looking at what you can do to help others, and that's the value in the business. If you can come at this from a very I've lost the word. If you can be really authentic about how you offer that level of help, I think not only does that help you solve a solution now around what kind of work you can take on in the next 3 to 6 months, but I think it also sets your business up. And, you know, as Bruce, as I'm sure said to you, that reputation, once you've got that reputation, once you're in a position where people do trust you, where they believe in what you're trying to do, that is just invaluable. So that's where I'd be kind of heading.
Thanks, Mel. Really, really important words here that you're drawing out of this is, you know, things like help, innovation. I think, Mel, that, you know, when we talk about marketing, and even if we use that dirty word called sales, nobody is going to do anything with you if they don't trust you. And I don't think that that's really changed all that much. You know, it just now is more important, right? They have to trust you because there's more at risk. Are you still there, Mel?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, that's okay. I was going to ask you a question. Just wanted to make sure. What are you seeing as some of the major shifts in the messaging that people are putting out there that's actually having a little bit of an effect right now? What's the sort of tone of the wording that's going out on social media or whatever?
I think that there's a couple of key things here when we talk about messaging. Is you can't be tone deaf. You know, you can't be making light of the situation or in any way downplaying the seriousness of the situation. I think that anything along that line really will play into a very negative headspace.
So these pictures of people joking around about social distancing and that is really not going down very well right now, is it?
I think for our business, there are certainly maybe some businesses where they have a little bit more of a lackadaisical or a bit more of a funny approach to things. But with our kind of industry, that's sort of not really our thing. I think it's okay to have a bit of fun with something. There's some very, very funny memes going home about being isolated. And one of the funniest ones I saw was a list of all the places you'll be visiting over Easter. And it was like, you know, the Isle of Bedroom, and you know, all these sort of different places. It was very, very funnily done, but you know, so I think you don't need to ignore the problem. I think there's no point pretending it doesn't exist. We all need, so it's okay to acknowledge the problem, but if you acknowledge it in a way that creates more fear, then I think you're working against your best interests. So I think that the language and the messaging, you know, if you are going to offer someone a solution, then I think it needs to be more than just offering them a solution. It has to be not a gift, obviously, because you're not giving it to them for free, but it needs to come across as, you know, that you've really thought about, you know, I've seen a lot of messaging, particularly around home offices, and you would expect that people would acknowledge that is an opportunity and that they would take advantage of that. But I've seen some really kind of, I guess, fumbling messaging around the home office thing, where it's kind of like, oh, since you have to work at home, you may as well have a nice home space to work in. It's like, well, okay, that is a truth.
Now is the best time to order our flat pack stuff. So here's our ordering system.
Yeah.
Ooh,
and it's not that message is incorrect. It's just, to me, I just kind of feel like it's a bit.
It's going to miss the mark, isn't it?
Well, I think it sounds a bit opportunistic. I think you know, if you talk more about, you know, I think if you pivot a bit and you go, well, what do people need in their home office environment? Like plants, you know, there are many, many expert articles and expert opinions out there that talk about how good greenery is to have in the home for health and well-being and that sort of thing. So I think there are ways that you can utilize other aspects to present your products or your solutions
Yep.
in a good light. That's not the hard sell.
Yeah. I think, you know, now more than ever, it's about making that connection and that relationship, right? And that trust. Thanks, Mel. By the way, if anybody wants to follow Mel, you also do a blog, don't you?
Yep, it's called the Kitchen and Bathroom Blog. So it's a blog for industry. We update it daily on just general things that are happening in the industry, new products that are coming out, a whole variety of things. So please, it's really easy to find. It is literally just thekitchenandbathroomblog.com.au.
Yep.
So yeah, please feel free to follow us and, you know, reach out to us on social media too if you need to, you know, if you want anything covered or if you've got any good ideas for things. So always looking for feedback.
Beautiful. Thanks for your words of advice, Mel. You're a gem, and glad to be connected with you.
Happy to help.
Cheers. All right. So when we take those sort of messages away, we are talking about really how you gain trust, and that's not a new conversation. Our marketing messaging is always about how do you get trust of someone, because for someone to part with money or to make a connection with you, they have to trust you. I actually think that now is an opportunity to go up a level or two, because when we come out the other side of this, there's going to be some new thinking with clients, and they're going to be thinking about viruses. They're going to be thinking like this is not just going to go away and then we forget about it. There's going to be a new norm here. So if currently right now, if you want to gain more trust, one of my messages for everyone is think of how you can take things up a level above everyone else. And who would you trust most right now? It's probably, you know, the surgeons or the hospital, and they have a level of cleanliness right now that is what we would call surgical, right? So if you can somehow talk about being surgically clean or surgically clear about what you're doing with all of this, and then demonstrate that of what you're doing in your factory, demonstrate that on what you're doing with your boys or girls on the bench and in the trucks, show on social media that you're cleaning your trucks regularly. My family and I are looking at making a move right now. We're moving house in the next month of all times. And I'm looking at removalists right now, and I'm only picking the ones that are very, very professional about what they do. And they're demonstrating to me that they've trained their staff about how to be clean and be safe for us. So I think it's extremely important that you can take things up to a new level, because your new client is going to require you to be surgically clean about what you're doing. And this is an easy thing to demonstrate if you're actually doing it. So let's not say we just want to show it. We want to actually do it and take it on board as a new culture. So your team training can be something that you show on social media. So instead of saying, here's a kitchen door, I want to buy it, like that's what most joiners do, right? I've got this beautiful kitchen that we did for a customer, and you show it on social media and then expect people to call you because of it. That is absolutely not going to work. It didn't work before to any great degree at all, and it's not going to work now. But if you are showing what your team is doing, I think that will gain this new trust from your customer to possibly have you in their house. Your new customer is looking for new products as well. So we talk about your new customer and new products. There are products on the market right now that have more antibacterial properties than others. There's certain solid surface materials for bench tops that have high levels of antibacterial properties because of the actual material they're made out of. What I'm suggesting to everyone is now is the time to get ahead of it, because emerging from this is going to be a new customer that's looking for, if I'm going to have a new kitchen in my house, I don't want to have a repeat of the last one where we had this, you know, this terrible looking bench top that was grubby. I want something that's antibacterial on my bench top. And if you can get ahead of products like that, that's going to stand you in a really good stead in your new customer base, which is your old customer, just with a new set of eyes. And so start looking at products right now that's going to resonate with your new customer. People are going to need to keep hand sanitizer available. It's now not tucked under the sink anymore or away in the bathroom. We want it in multiple places in the house. Maybe we could think about making hand sanitizer dispensers that don't look like the things that you see in the hospital, right? Maybe we can make some really cool, funky looking hand sanitizer dispensers. So think about your new customer and what they're looking for, and let's get onto it right now, because they want this stuff right now. There's a need, a present need for what people are wanting right now. And let's be really, really clear. Business has changed right now. And we want to raise the bar, and we want to talk about germ-free surfaces. But there's an opportunity here, because People are on the internet right now in record numbers. What else are you going to do when you're at home? You're going to be on Google. You're going to be on Facebook. You're going to be on all these channels, right? And if you are just blasting out the same old marketing, believe me, it's not worth it. But if you start, Ben has said toilet roll storage, it sounds funny, but it's actually quite true. You know, people are now storing food like never before. So these storage things, those are sort of things that we can talk about. Now, this is also an emerging market, right? Where we start talking about the new products, new surfaces. When you are at the leading edge of this, you're going to be way ahead of that curve. You're going to be on that green line, right? So I'll just get a little bit of feedback from everyone on this. What are your thoughts? What's your takeaway from what we just ran through about where you're at right now, starting from here? What do you need now? And what's new? What are your thoughts? What have we inspired you to think about that you didn't think about before? Alex says, thanks, Mel. Post a link to your blog. Ben's talking about new products. Awesome. Home office fit out, says Sean. There's Melanie's blog. Definitely the messaging around what we're doing in the midst of things, Adrian. Absolutely. Solid surface will take off for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's antibacterial, and there's a specific, I don't have the name ready right now, antibacterial. Clever design for sure. Providing new surfaces for new problems, helpfulness and kindness. Jacques, that's so true. Being helpful and kind, understanding and connected to people, understanding that this is not easy. Communicating with our hygiene practices, 100%. You know, I look at people on the internet right now that are actually doing this thing, and I have to say that when I see people goofing around with it and making a joke of it, it puts me off, because it was funny to begin with. It's not funny anymore. It's now a serious thing. So I think that's how your target client will take it as well. So use this as a bit of a jumping off point to start a conversation. If you're not in the hub, the Joinery Business Hub, jump into the Joinery Business Hub. Let's start having some of these conversations. You can see from this small gathering of people, we've now inspired some more thinking around what you might be doing. Imagine if we did that with the 400 people that are in the hub. You know, how many people we're going to start getting better ideas, and you know, one idea is usually not the end product. We've got to have that combined with 2 or 3 other good ideas from other people, and then it takes off with something. All right, so how do we build your new strategy? We're going to jump forward here. We build your new strategy the exact same way we built your old strategy. We want to have you, and this is an example of what a strategy might be to begin with. So this is, to be really clear what we're doing here, this is an example, not your strategy. So for example, you might have a plan to grow a flat pack division in your business when you improve the internal practices. Write down with clarity what your new strategy is. And you can draw that from some of the notes we took in this workbook already. Talk about what your new strategy is going to be. How are you going to get through this? But how does this link in with your current business strategy? Because this shouldn't be any different than what you're currently doing. So talk about your business and your products. Talk about your team. Like, where do people sit? One of the biggest problems we find with joinery businesses is we've got all these people, but nobody's got any clear lanes or paths as to what they do. You know, the guy cuts it, he assembles it, he installs it. You know, that doesn't really create a whole lot of clarity. So now more than ever, it's really important to have very specific roles and responsibilities for people in their business. And the best structure in your business looks like this. I won't go into too much detail here, but it looks like this, where you have, let's say this is you as an owner. And if you break your business structure down into, let's call this your sales team, sales and marketing. Let's call this your finance and admin. And let's call this your production. Create teams underneath those 3 main categories. Now, you may find that you are the sales guy and you are the finance driver and you're the production, but that just highlights the fact that you've got to get out of some of these departments and get other people in them for you. That was probably already a present problem. You're doing too many things, you're wearing too many hats. So start thinking about, if you were to bring someone in to your sales team, what would they do? You'd have to create some processes to give to someone and say, here's how we do our sales and marketing in this business. If you're to bring someone in to do finance, well, the easiest thing is to hire a bookkeeper and then start creating processes around that. But there still has to be some handover information and How do you do your invoicing? There's got to be some processes. So again, we start talking about writing processes and procedures in your business. And when you have a production team, when you have your production team, underneath your production team, you have someone that does your scheduling, you have someone that does your purchasing, you have somebody that does your, let's say, your set out work or your drawing work. And then under here, you have a team of people in the factory, and then you have installers. So draw out that team if you haven't done it already, and be really clear about what they are in the business to do, because that's the structure of your business. Now that is more important than ever. And you can put this into a little bit more of a drill down strategic plan. Talk about your revenue targets in this period of time, but then you're going to convert that into a 6 and 12 month plan. Talk about what current net profits you might want to be achieving. If it happens that this slowdown takes you from a 10% net profit to a 2% net profit, because we've done all our financial forecasting already, then that's okay, because you knew it was going to happen. You're in control of it. And talk about what targets you have. We might not be talking about growth right now. We might be talking about simple survival through this time. But if you're in control of it, then you'll feel a whole lot better when it happens. And talk about the things that are your bottlenecks, like what's going to hold you up. What are some of the things that are going to stop you from doing it? Then use this sheet here to start listing off the big issues that you take from here with topics and what you need to do to address those things. Just ask everybody, is this making sense, this strategic planning? Does this help you put things into a little bit of perspective? Hopefully I'm not overcomplicating it. It is a simple, by the way, I thought I'd mention here, this strategic plan that is a 2-sheet strategy plan. I used to write strategy plans for businesses that were about 250 pages. And that would be a consultation form or a consultation contract that I would have with people. I'd get hired by a lot of joinery businesses to say, look, we need to figure out what our strategy is going to be and what we need to fix the business. And part of the consultative report would be a strategy plan. What I did was I cut out all the shit and I said, let's just put this into 2 pages. Let's talk about your business and your products. Number one, let's talk about your team. Who's going to do this? Because you want to achieve this, but you're not going to do it. You're going to need a team to do it. And then let's drill down the very specifics that's going to drive your business forward. So there's your strategy plan. And like I say, this is actually all the words cut out of a 200-page report and just put onto what the hell are we going to do when we create a strategy plan? Specifically, what are the things you need to do? And then what you can do is you can put this into reality. What are we actually going to do? What's the real problem? So let me just get some feedback from everyone. What's the takeaway from this? What do you need to do moving forward? What's the next steps for you? When we hang up here today in a few minutes, what are you going to implement new in your business? Just give me 1 or 2 words from all of this. Is it going to be something around marketing? Is it going to be something around new product emerging? Is it going to be things like your broadcasting through social media? What are you actually doing internally? What are the sort of things we're going to change? Scott says working on systems and pricing. Scott, marketing, pricing, 1, 2. Pricing is so important. I don't know if we've engaged with you before, but we've got a cost plus pricing system. Pricing is actually really easy if you take on the cost plus pricing model. But a lot of people make pricing this mystical beast. We can certainly help you with that. Just give me a shout and I can help you. Team structure, new product, new marketing, push social more, good strategic plan. Awesome. All right. Great to see you guys looking at this the way it's going to help. So I'm going to give you a couple of how to implement this. We've gone through a few things that are how to create a strategic plan. What do we need to be thinking about? What are the new things that we've got going on? Melanie says we might want to start a blog and how to drive social. By the way, the House of Social with Melanie and Beck is connected to the Joinery Coach. We've got some connections. If you want to have your marketing outsourced so that you actually drive leads to your door rather than sitting on social media all day long, just contact me and we can get you connected up. Okay, so how do we implement this stuff? Okay, so again, we go back to the business model where we had these 9 foundations, and what we would typically say to people is we're going to work in 90-day sprints, right? We said, look, what are we going to do? We may be going to work on marketing and put that up here and work on that for 90 days. We might work on your pricing structure and work on that for 90 days. And we might also look at maybe your product mix and work on that up here for 90 days. So we would have typically one project, two projects, and let's say 3 projects at most with any client for 90 days. Now, I think 90 days right now is a really long period of time. I don't know about you, but every day for me feels like a month, or every week feels like a month. So time has certainly been compressed. So what we're sort of saying is, look, let's do this in 30 days, or maybe even 7 days, but in the same way, right? What are you going to do over these periods of times? Because it's so much more important to do this quickly. So when we talk about what are these sort of things individually here that you're going to do, what you can do is you can take this workbook and say, right, in this not 4-month block now, you can say in this 1-month block, you can start writing down, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do. So this is what we say, this is what we call a high level plan, right? So we're talking about the high level things, long-term strategies. This is what we call thigh level. So it comes from high level down to thigh level. We're actually going to detail what your focus point number 1 is. Like, what are you actually going to implement? Focus point number 2, focus point number 3. Get into some specifics about what it is you're going to implement in the next day or 2 days or 3 days. And then what you can do is you can take this and then you can get down to what we call thigh level. So high level, sorry, I said that wrong. High level, eye level, because you're actually seeing what we're doing here. This is eye level. And then we get down to thigh level where we're actually doing stuff. So this is going to say, let's, for example, if we were to say out in your factory, we want to have a clean, spotless area around the bench. So you're going to say, Bill is going to go and clean, that says clean, sorry about my bad handwriting, clean bench area. And how is he going to do it? You're going to say, here's some steps, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to give him some very clear instructions. And you're also going to say when. Okay, that's going to be next week. Or you might say Wednesday to Thursday, all day. So this is going to be put up on the wall, this one sheet that you're seeing on your screen right now. You can do this in different forms. I'm not saying you have to do it exactly like this, but you have to get from the big plan, what are you going to do over the next period of time, down to eye level, like what are we actually talking about, get a little bit more clarity on it, so we're focusing more. And then you're going to have to hand this off to someone. So it's much like if you're running a relay where you hand off the baton, right? You've got to figure out who's the team first. What are they going to do? Who goes first? Who goes second? Who goes third and fourth? And that sort of thing. So that's your team and their positions in your team. And then you've got to be able to hand the plan off to someone. So Bill takes the baton after position 1 and runs with it. That's what he does. So think of it a lot like a relay race. You've got to be able to hand stuff off to people rather than trying to do it all yourself. So guys, that's a really quick run through of a strategy plan, tailored, specifically for this period in time. But here's the interesting thing: is that was always our strategy plan. All we're doing is we're just contextualizing it. But it was always things we did in businesses where we want to have a clear strategy that leads to actions, that leads to forward momentum, that leads to fixing the things that you need fixed right now, not the other stuff that really don't need to be fixed. And that's probably the biggest key, is that don't work on stuff that you don't need to be working on. So any thoughts or feedback we'd like to get, just some closing remarks from people. If you'd like to come online right now and talk about something, please put your hand up. We're happy to do that, or just type in the box yes. More than happy to bring you online. Sean, if you want to talk about your business, now is an opportunity. Anybody else want to talk about your business? We've got a few people here that would be more than interested to hear what you're doing. But I'd like to hear some feedback. What are you going to do from this point forward and implement? I know we mentioned it before, but let's just talk about it again. Adrian says 2 days is a long time right now. It absolutely is, isn't it? Things change so quickly. Adrian says, I've been planning to connect with TJC. Great to hear a snippet of your approach. Oh, great. Yeah, look, I'm probably one of the most contactable people on the planet. So anytime. Yeah, and this isn't a sales pitch, but I think it's important for everybody on the line right now to know that we do have a reasonably large group of businesses that are engaged in our program, that are doing amazing things right now. They didn't start out that way. We started out with a whole lot of fear and apprehension about what this is going to mean. We had to work through that, and then we had to start putting some action plans in place. Our role really is accountability to keep that actually happening, because business is, you get distracted really easily, and that's where this sort of meandering down to the yellow or red line comes from, is nobody holds you accountable. And I think no matter what happens, you need to get someone to hold you accountable. So many things to focus on right now from Ben. That's really awesome. Adrian, Alex, Shanoa, give us a little bit of feedback on this. Today is providing with some good ideas and templates to build on. Absolutely. Take this workbook, and I'd love to hear back from you in the days coming forward, or the days ahead. Just let me know how you went. Type something in the hub. Let's get some conversations there. Great, generous contributions to the industry. Yeah, Adrian, look, that's what I'm here for. We run a business, but we do that because we want to help the industry. Myself personally, as you know, that's what I do. I really appreciate you jumping on board. I'm really happy to be able to serve and give in this period of time. That's what we're here to do. And if anybody has any questions or wants to contact me, there's a million ways you can do it. You can jump on our website. You can actually go to thewealthyjoiner.com, jump into the Joinery Business Hub if you're not already there. And yeah, just book a call or send me a message and we can connect. You're very welcome. I'm more than happy to do this sort of thing. We'll be doing more of these in the coming weeks and months. And thanks everybody for attending. We will wrap it up. Seeing there's no more questions or comments, I appreciate everybody's engagement. I really do. And yeah, let's have a chat in the future. Everybody stay safe, stay engaged, stay curious. Peace out.